This piece is entitled, Join the Negro Rifle Association, made in 2017 by Dred Scott, a Chicago-based visual artist of African descent, whose work, amongst other things, focuses on the constructions of whiteness and blackness in America. This piece visually illuminates the anti-blackness that is constitutive of America's national identity and that is so woven into its political ideologies. This piece of photography, with multicolored text, plays with language and color quite tactfully. The words Negro Rifle Association, written in red, immediately shout out a connection to the National Rifle Association, the NRA, parodying it. The NRA, formed in 1871, is a very right-wing conservative, Second Amendment protectionist group in the United States that is aligned very closely with the politics of American republicanism. Since the election of November 2016, the U.S. has been under Donald Trump, a very right-wing conservative president. This piece serves as a subversive, campaign-like image in the wake of the increase of overt displays of white nationalist bigotry since his election. This parody of the NRA's name creates a sense of humor, and simultaneously the subject's grave, unflinchingly tough facial expression gives a real sense of seriousness to the piece. These two aspects paired together are empowering. The use of the word Negro in this piece created in 2017 has a powerful effect. The word Negro was really popularized and widespread in the early to mid 20th century in the US, and in large part fizzled out by the early 1970s. The use of this word also activates the piece to engage with the idea of double consciousness, and that the term Negro is not one popularly used amongst black people today in the US, but the piece presents an awareness that within the US's structures of whiteness, black people can very well still be considered in terms of Negroes, colored people, or what have you. This speaks to the interchangeability of the terms assigned to blackness to best serve and uphold structures of whiteness. This historical fluidity of the terms used to signify blackness in the US helps reveal the fluidity of whiteness and its relationship to these constructions of race. The use of red for the letters forming the words Negro Rifle Association, in conjunction with the image of the gun, invokes a connotation of bloodshed. Red is the color that has become associated with the Republican political party in the US, and correspondingly the NRA as well. This piece opposes the ideologies of this wing of politics through its use of irony, borrowing their aesthetic implementation of the color red and speaking to the irony of the contradictions of their own politics. Nationalists, Second Amendment protectionists, but only protectors of these rights for a very specific portion of the American population, the white Christian population. The use of the color red also draws a connection to the color's association with Marxist and socialist movements, going all the way back to the symbol of the red flag. This association brings forth the piece's connection to the history of groups such as the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, who made it their mission to educate, inspire, and mobilize black people to know and act on their rights in this country, including the right to bear arms. The use of a black woman as the subject of this piece also interrogates the patriarchy embedded into American society and its gun culture. This piece helps to visually deconstruct the white male monopoly on gun ownership and the right to bear arms in the United States. In this way, the piece serves as a visual representation of the black feminist concept of intersectionality, a way to understand how interlocking systems of domination work together. The use of black fashion in this piece, or at least fashion coded to be black through American mainstream media, such as the hat flip backwards on the woman's head, engages the piece in a conversation about policing, profiling, the criminalization of black bodies, and the power that law enforcement and media have to construct and influence notions of what are visual cues of a suspect or a threat. The role of clothes and fashion has played a key function in the discourse around many cases of police brutality in the States, whether it be a sweatshirt with the hood up or a turban on top of someone's head. The system of law enforcement uses the external appearances of people and their associations with these images to justify any and every action its officers take to quote-unquote protect themselves and carry out their duty. The Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States was written in 1789 as, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Oxford Dictionary defines the word militia as such, a military force that is raised from the civil population to supplement a regular army in an emergency, or a military force that engages in rebel or terrorist activities in opposition to a regular army. The NRA in fact sees themselves as such a coalition, and this piece serves as a visual response, calling for the creation of a different coalition, a black one, in part for self-defense against gun-toting, white nationalist groups like the NRA, amongst a host of other white supremacist groups. When this Constitution was created, black people weren't even legally considered people yet, but rather as property. So the Second Amendment definitely wasn't created with the idea of black people carrying guns in mind at all. This piece functions as a visual representation of white anxiety about black gun ownership in the States. Black property ownership, and especially gun ownership, as a tool that can so easily take a life, a powerful, deadly weapon, presents a paradox that threatens the foundation of American whiteness. How can property own property? This tension between the idea of a citizen carrying out their constitutional rights and the question of who even is considered a citizen, or a person at that, is all beautifully conveyed through this piece.
America was a bastard, the illegitimate daughter of the mother country, whose legs were then spread around the world, and a rapist known as freedom, free doom. Democracy, liberty, and justice were revolutionary code names that preceded the bubbling in the mother country's crotch. After all is said and done, build a new route to China if they'll have you. Who will survive in America? Who will survive in America? Who will survive in America? Who will survive in America?